Hey there, I'm Sean. Welcome to Edge of Breakup. This episode, we're going to be doing a step-by-step on how to install the Kingtone Switch on your Strat. This is the SRV variant of the Switch, giving you a huge range of modified treble bleed sounds to choose from. The sound of your guitar across the 6 positions of the Switch will run from very treble forward to rounder and fatter in the low end. When you combine the 6 switch positions together with your 5 pickup positions on your Strat, plus your volume knob cleanup with drive and fuzz, and your global tone knob, this is a dizzying array of new tones for you to explore with your Strat amp fuzz and drive pedals. Additionally, there are 4 dipswitches on the Switch itself which allow for 16 different configurations so you can precisely match it to the needs of your rig. For this reason, Kingtone recommends installing the Switch circuitry, but letting the Switch hang out of the pickguard initially as you adjust the dipswitches through the 16 variants in the manual. This video will be focused on the installation of the Switch as well as a brief look at the results. I'll be doing a deeper dive video soon that's more comprehensive on the sound and tones available, so stay tuned for that. Let's get started on the install. First, you're going to want to make sure to take your strings off and take the screws out of the pickguard so you can flip the guard over and get a look at the internal wiring. The Kingtone Switch takes the place of your secondary tone knob, the one furthest from the volume knob. So the first thing we have to do is unsolder the connections to the existing secondary tone knob. Depending upon how your Strat is wired, this might mean detaching several wires from the tone knob so that you can remove it from the circuitry to replace it with the Kingtone Switch. So let's flip the guard over. In this case, my tone knob had a bit of a custom mod on it to blend between the neck and the bridge pickups. So I'm going to go to the pickup selector switch and unsolder the wires from the bridge and neck positions so I can remove the tone potentiometer and replace it with the Kingtone Switch. I really recommend getting some tweezers for this because when you heat up components with a soldering iron, they can also heat up and burn your fingers. This lets you get very precise and also avoid any injuries. Once you heat the terminals, the wires should come off quite easily with just a little pressure from the tweezers. Let's give it a shot. So first, I'm going to remove this wire. This one is coming from the tone potentiometer through all this network of wires, and I'm just going to apply a little pressure and a little heat, and it should pop right off, just like that. Next, I'm going to be taking this wire off. Same thing, just a little pressure and a little heat, and if you use the side of the soldering iron, I tend to have more success because you get better heat transfer that way. Soldering iron back down. There, we've removed the wiring. So let's remove the nut and washer holding the pot in place on the guard. Make sure to put the parts in a safe place. I recommend like a Ziploc baggie in case you won't need the spare parts later. So to do this, we need to flip the guard back over. And I have a little socket wrench here that I can use to get some better leverage. Taking the nut off, and there's a washer here as well. And the switch, the pot should pop right out. So there's a dish over here. And there you go. There's my previous Emerson blender pot that was used to blend between the bridge and the neck. And I'm going to try out the Kingtone Switch in its place. So let's go get the Kingtone Switch. We're going to place the new Kingtone Switch temporarily in the guard to hold it stationary as we solder its connections. You're going to laugh here, but initially I tried to use the previous nut and washer from the old potentiometer and it didn't fit the Kingtone Switch. I thought I was going to have to go to the hardware store, but it was only then that I realized that Kingtone looks after its customers. They included a nut and a washer right on it I didn't even notice. So just simply unscrew them from the top of your Kingtone Switch and you can use it to secure it in place. Great. So we'll just pop it through the bottom of the guard. Washer on top, then the nut. Once you get it on there, give it a little tighten. Make sure it's facing the right way on the inside of the guard so you're not stressing the wires. Great, so now that we've done that, we can flip the guard over again. Now, as I mentioned prior, it's actually recommended by Kingtone to not screw the switch into place just yet. We have enough wire to let it hang outside the pickguard when we put the guard back on with just a few screws so that we can mess with the dip switches later on to find our perfect tone for the right amount of treble and bass fatness. So attaching it at this moment is just temporary to hold it in place so that the soldering is easier. It's time to solder the wires to the 3 different lugs of the volume pot. The black wire attaches to the lug that is already grounded to the pot, which is right here. So that should be very easy to see on your setup, hopefully. The red wire attaches to the middle lug, and finally the white wire attaches to the last lug, the one remaining one that you haven't soldered to yet. And that's the only 3 wires you actually have to solder, so it's pretty simple. So I usually tin the wires, the tips of them, so that they're easy to bond with. There you go. Get that done. And then I'm going to do it in the same order I just previously said. So we're going to take the black wire first, then the red wire, then the white wire. It helps to bend the wire the way you want it to go ahead of time, so that it's already sitting against the pot. Then just secure it with the tweezers so it's nice and firm against it, and then just melt it to the pot and hold it there and don't move it. And as soon as the solder cools, it'll have bonded to it. It's going to make it a lot easier to join to the same pot if I can kind of wind these 2 wires together. Great. And I'll just apply a bit of solder to them. Great. So that they make contact with the pot. Hold it steady so it doesn't move as it dries. Great, it's solid. Finally, we're going to take the white wire. We're going to come over the top here, and we're going to drop it on the final lug. Great. That is looking really good. So that's it. That's all the soldering we have to do. Awesome. Let's get a guitar cord plugged in here. Turn on the amp. Sounds like success to me. Perfect. Got sound when we should. So that's it. We're actually done with wiring. Let's go ahead and put the guard back in place and hang the Kingtone switch just outside the guard like we mentioned earlier to explore some tones before we commit to actually installing it in the guard. So now we just really need to put 2 or 3 screws in to hold the guard in place so that we can see how we like the sounds once we string up, and once we like the way the dipswitches are set on the Kingtone switch, install it fully into the guard. Alright, great. So now we begin adjusting the dipswitches on the Kingtone switch. Now the dipswitches are right there, if you can see that well. And they're very tiny. I recommend getting some tweezers to adjust them. The same ones I was using earlier for the circuitry are fine. Kingtone has a great resource of all the different configurations you can use. So let's see where we're at on the switch. This end has a lot more glassy treble on it, so listen to this. Totally different character. And I bet with the bridge pickup, you're going to get some real glass going on. And the treble stays nice and intact when I turn the volume down. So yeah, that's about it. At this point, we pretty much just gotta drop the pot back into the guard here and secure the rest of the screws, and we're done. So thanks for sticking with me through this. Keep in mind, I'm going to be doing a full explore of the Kingtone Switch along with Kingtone pedals like the 1968 Vibe, the Mini Fuzz GE, SI, the Duelist, and showing how it's a formidable tone cocktail when put all together. Thank you, Kingtone, for sending this over. So appreciative, love your products, and looking forward to that next video. Cheers.